And then finally, we've got Gus Malzahn. After a nice run there at Auburn, I know in following up his firing, I don't know that there's been more of at least in the few years that I've been really focused on this here with coaches' firings, that there's been more of a split between pro and those people that said, losing 4 and 5 games is not acceptable versus those that are very comfortable with what Auburn's accomplished and point back to the 2013 and 17 seasons and what was accomplished in regards to pretty much of a 50-50 split, at least the feedback that I heard from the Auburn fan base. I don't know what it was like there on ground zero where you are in terms of the response.
Well, the response was kind of iffy. Because I think that the when I say iffy, I mean you don't really know if people were leaning pro or con, because I think a lot of people were very hung up on the amount of money that Auburn had to pay to Gus Malzahn within 30 days of it. I mean, look, everybody gets excited when they open up their phone, when they wake up in the morning and they've got that bank notification that the money has been deposited in their account. But think about getting that deposit and finding out that deposit was, you look at it and go, Auburn University has deposited $20 million into your bank account. I mean, I don't know what you would do on that day, but I would have a lot of fun. And I think that a lot of people were really hung up on that part of it because we're in a pandemic. I mean, we're coming out of it, but we're still in a pandemic. And there was a lot of questions about the usage of that money. And what people don't realize was that was not Auburn University that was spending that money. That money is coming from boosters and people that have invested in the university. Those same people are also the people that have funded this football only facility that is now going to be built directly behind the practice field for Auburn on the old track. That just got approved a few weeks ago as well. So this is all private money. I know that the university lost a lot of money in 2020, and a lot of universities did, but there were some private citizens that made bank through the pandemic, whether, depending on what there is. Trust me, I know for a fact that the price of lumber and housing, because I'm getting my house built, has skyrocketed during this pandemic. So if you're in the lumber industry, like some of Auburn's donors are, they are making very good money right now. So they don't care about throwing this in. And that's kind of what has happened in there. So that was part of the reason why many Auburn fans were kind of torn about it. The other part was, okay, he's had 8 seasons. He got you to a national championship the first season. He got you to an SEC championship in the 5th season. But the other seasons, that was a bumpy road. And it really was a bumpy road. And the whole development of quarterbacks. And look, the thought was, even with Bo Nix, this was his first time that he was really starting a freshman quarterback and letting him grow on the football field. Jeremy Johnson was still played behind Nick Marshall when he was there. And Bo Nix regressed in his 2nd season. And this is a guy that was probably the #1 dual threat quarterback in the country coming out, and he has regressed, which is now you're going into this junior season, and this may or may not be his last year at Auburn. So he needs to progress greatly. And under the Auburn and under Malzahn, many people didn't think that was going to happen. So, it was kind of, okay, it's time. I hate the circumstances. I don't think that it should have went this way. Then comes the news about Kevin Steele, and that is where this whole thing took a turn in Malzahn's favor. And I think that today you have a lot of people that are Auburn fans that are like, I'm glad that Auburn finally went a new direction. I hate the way that it went, but I'm also glad that he ended up at UCF because maybe he could really do something good there, and I want him to. His wife, who is very heavily involved in the Auburn program, is a fantastic woman. He's a great man. Outside of the locker rooms and outside of the press conferences, he's a great guy. And the problem with it is then comes this Kevin Steele story of how Kevin Steele was working the boosters behind the scenes to get Malzahn fired. The decision was made, and that was the pick that many boosters had. And that was the reason why 3 and 4 and 5 days after Malzahn was fired, we really started hearing a lot about Kevin Steele, and nobody could understand why. And then we found out through some whistleblowers that, hey, look, this guy has been behind this all along. He's been working on this for 2 years. And so now the reason they fired him is because they wanted Kevin Steele in, because many boosters thought that they could have control. So once that news came out, and Alan Green kind of saw that this was kind of sabotaged after Mario Cristobal said no, after, other coaches that were, really names have been really connected to the program had said no, looking down at Billy Napier and those types of guys. Alan Green said, screw you guys. I'm doing this myself. And if I'm going to get fired because my tenure as athletic director was going to go down in flames, I was going to make sure it goes down in flames because of decisions I made, not because decisions that boosters made for me and I had no control over my program. And that's how Brian Harsin got there. And then you fast forward, and Kevin Steele somehow is now at Tennessee, and he's just on an off the field role. And like 3 days later, Jeremy Pruitt is fired and Kevin Steele is named the head coach. And you're like, okay, questions. We've got questions. We knew this stuff about Jeremy Pruitt was coming out. We didn't know how bad it was. We all knew the moment that Kevin Steele was hired, this guy's being hired to be the next head coach. Like, there's no reason you bring him in for an off the field job if he's not going to be the head coach. So when that starts to happen, you start piecing everything together with what he did behind Malzahn. And really, a lot of us were like, look, man, I wasn't a fan of him on the field and in the direction the program was going, but you don't deserve a Benedict Arnold in your locker room doing that behind your back. And I mean, this guy basically became Judas. I mean, he became Judas and he stabbed Malzahn in the back. And so now Auburn fans were really kind of like, dude, I really didn't like you being our coach anymore because I thought that the university needed to go somewhere else. But dude, you didn't deserve that. And I think that a lot of Auburn fans kind of went, you're a very good person and thank you for representing the university the way that you did. Auburn never got in trouble with him. They were never under sanctions. There was never a major spy story like there was with Gene Chizik. And thank you for representing the university and keeping it clean. And that was kind of the direction is. And I think that today there are actually more Gus Malzahn fans wearing orange and blue than there probably ever was while his tenure was as the Auburn head coach.
And it's a good landing spot for him at UCF. It's one of the very few group of 5 programs that, because of what they did a couple of years ago, has some kind of name cachet or recognition nationally. People think, okay, UCF, Boise State, there's only a couple at that level. They've got a huge alumni base. It's a huge university.
It's massive
in terms of population size. And then, of course, they're in the middle of all that talent. So he's got plenty of speed that he can recruit right there in Florida for his offense.
Well, and to be honest with you, Josh Heupel getting the head job at Tennessee is questionable at best. Like, look, I know you could tell me a lot of things, but you can't sit there and give me an old beat up car with no doors and tell me that this is a nice ride. And don't sit here and tell me that you did a coaching search, spent thousands of dollars of your university and your boosters' money to literally go hire the guy that was just your head coach at the university you just came from. No, that just doesn't smell right to me. So for UCF, they got what they wanted, and they got the publicity that they wanted from UCF, winning the national championship, beating Malzahn, oddly. And they get that, and now this university can move in the direction they want to, because at some point in time, whether it is in the next 5 years, the next 4 years, the next 10 years, there's going to be conference expansion. UCF is going to be a part of that. They absolutely are, because of the things that you just mentioned. The huge stadium, the enormous university, the land that they cover in Orlando. I mean, basically Orlando is made up of UCF and Walt Disney. Like, either you're a mouse or a knight. You're one of the two. It doesn't matter which one, but you're basically that whole land is like Jacksonville. Duval County is Jacksonville. UCF and Walt Disney is Orlando. That's it. That's all there is. And there's also an arena somewhere for the Magic to play. Like, that's it. So that is all they have. And that university is big enough. It has the fan base, and it's in such a great recruiting ground because I just mentioned IMG Academy. Look, if you can get players from IMG Academy to basically go 45 minutes down the road, you are going to be in a good place. And you can do that with Miami. You can do that with everywhere in the state of Florida with the 5 stars that they are developing, and you can get a lot of good talent to UCF. This was one of, and if it was actually the best offense in the AAC last year. Dylan Gabriel has kind of made some headlines over the past couple hours, or I say 24 hours or so, because of the Malzahn hire. But I fully expect him to be the starting quarterback. He led the conference in passing yards last year. Malzahn is going into a good place with a good rushing attack, a great passing attack, and a team that can win 9 and 10 games. And I don't know what his plan is when it comes to how long he would like to be at UCF, but the biggest thing for him is, and let me just emphasize, in college football, a lot of times we like to say people are stupid. We like to say that decision makers are idiots. I am fully under the belief that the people that designed the college football playoff were done so out of greediness. And if you truly wanted to make that tournament great, you would have the semifinal on the home campuses of the top 2 teams. Like, you should do that. There's not a dumber, and stupider is not a word, but we're going to use it, stupider man than President Leaf, former President Leaf at Auburn. This man, who was going into it, was transitioning from one athletic director to another one, literally signs this contract for Gus Malzahn, and there was no offsetting verbiage in there. There was no, if Gus Malzahn is hired as the head coach of another university, then Auburn will only be paying the difference of whatever that school is until they hit the mark that they are owed. There's none of that. Not one dime. Malzahn, which I don't even know if the terms of his contract have come out yet, but Malzahn now is in Orlando, a state that has no state income tax, and he's getting paid by not one, but 2 universities the full amount that he is owed. Jimmy Sexton's the greatest man on the face of this earth. He's like the modern day Santa Claus for coaches, because he will give you major deals. And if he sees an idiot in front of him, he is going to take him for all that he is worth. And that is exactly what Jimmy Sexton did. And Malzahn now is getting paid like $28 million from Auburn over the course of the next 4 or 5 years, which he's already got a big chunk of that. Remember? You got paid, and he got that. And now he could literally be coaching for $1 at UCF. Like, have you ever seen those deals going back to houses? I will sell you my house because you are my relative, and I will sell it to you for $1. Here you go. That's exactly what Malzahn could do if he wanted to, and be UCF 4 years, $4. He could totally do that and still be making millions of dollars, because President Leaf is a moron. Former President Leaf. Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I appreciate you, and have a good day. I mean, that's the truth, though. It was like, that was the first thing I said. The moment, you can follow me on Twitter at Joe Hung. The very moment I saw this, I asked the question, wait, does this mean that this is going to save Auburn millions of dollars? And Brandon Marcello of 24/7, who's our national guy now, he covered Auburn for years, basically sent me back the message, nope. And I said, whoa. There's no verbiage of offsetting costs. And he went, nope, Leaf didn't put that in the contract. And I was just, oh my God. How can you be this stupid? I mean, Jimmy Sexton, I want to know, and I don't know if the president's office is soundproof or not, but the moment that Sexton left that office, I promise you, he was probably laughing all the way down the hall when he got this thing signed. Like, no wonder Malzahn signed this deal. Like, Auburn fans are upset about this because he signed it right before the SEC championship, because Lee thought that he may be leaving Auburn to go to Arkansas, and he had to throw this deal at him. And he didn't even get offsetting costs. Not only did you get a horrific buyout in the deal that's going to hurt Auburn for the next 5 years, but no offsetting cost. So now he can be at UCF hanging out with Mickey and Minnie, Donald behind him, and just all you're doing the whole time is saying go Knights and getting paid from two universities. And who knows, there could be a point in time where Auburn and UCF play again, and he's going up against the school that is literally paying him not to coach. That could happen. I rest my case.
Oh, it's a sweet deal for Gus. Gus is in good shape. He landed well. And I don't know what happened to your former, when I say your, of course, I'm speaking of Auburn's former president. Don't know where he is at this point.
Fired.
Kind of deals.
Fired.
Okay. Gone and nowhere to be found. Wow.
Fired.
That's quite.
By the way, Auburn doesn't have a real good history with bringing people from Iowa State to Auburn. Their short-term success, Gene Chizik, which, by the way, in all seriousness, Gene, if you are watching this, I love you to death. You've given me amazing fatherly advice. I'm not joking. He really has. But tenure at Auburn, won national championship, then pew, President Lees did a little bit of good, and pew. And so, look, I don't care how great Matt Campbell is. I don't really care. I didn't want him to come to Auburn because he was from Iowa State, and Auburn just didn't have a good history of that. They just did it. Someone said they go to Boise.
Okay, you're not going to press your luck on 0 for 2.
Nope. I'm
look, 0 for 3.
One national championship is great. It was an amazing year, but Auburn should have more, and the university should be in a better place than what it was and what it is. And now Auburn is just now starting to kind of get out of that hole from the good old boy network. And if you are an Auburn fan, you know what I'm talking about. And so this is the reason why this university is kind of going in a different direction. And I'm excited to see what Brian Harson's doing, because he's not an Auburn guy. He doesn't have connections to boosters and Auburn and all this. This is a brand new guy with brand new thoughts. And in about 2 or 3 years, he's going to have a football only facility that's going to allow him to recruit like the rest of the SEC. And he could be potentially a great coach. I've heard a lot of great things about him. And with Malzahn, I hope he goes down to UCF and he goes undefeated every single year. And this guy has an amazing tenure, because he did not deserve what happened to him at Auburn during or at the very end, because it was very, very sad the way that he did leave Auburn under the circumstances that it did happen.
Read the banner, folks. Joe Hunk joins us on a regular basis to talk up Auburn and Alabama football. 97.7. It's ESPN 97.7, The Zone there in Huntsville. Joe always brings it for us and took us behind the curtain this time as well. So that was a great story, a great explanation of how that deal went down with Malzahn to UCF and Auburn having to open up the coffers big time. Well,
it's so
Auburn
sad.
Boosters.
Yes,
really
Auburn boosters, not the university. People don't realize that the school's only paying him like $500,000 or something. The other 5.5 million or 6.5 million coming straight from boosters.
Okay, well, I'm sure there's a lot of Auburn fans thinking just so they pile up the W's, it's not my money. So get it done. All right, Joe, appreciate you stopping by. Stay warm. There are brighter and warmer days coming to Alabama. There's no question about that. That's about as bad as it could possibly get. That's like the apocalypse for you right there.
I should have actually done this with the door open so you could see the snow falling behind me. It may have been a lot better than the drills and the saws that are up on the wall now, but I made enough home improvement references that we're good to go.
Yeah. Well, you did work for us, Joe. So we'll give you the rest of the night off. So,
thank you.
Have a good one, Joe.